Well, welcome to November's webinar for Canva Education. I'm excited to jump into this topic. It's near and dear to Digital Labs. So I'm the director of with Digital Labs. My name is Nathan Wells. I'm based outside of the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And this session is all about student learning. How do we get students creating these interactive learning experiences that they can use themselves for learning and that they can share with their peers and others to show their learning and be able to practice and study. So I'm excited to kind of dive into some of this. I have some real examples from my own children who have been able to use Canva in their schools, which is pretty great here in North Carolina. And I'm sure because you're joining, you probably have kids using it already. And so today is really focused on the student experience. How are students able to get into Canva Education, are able to create these interactive learning experiences and really support their own learning? That's what this session is focused on. If you were really curious about the teacher experience with Canva AI and creating interactive experiences from the teacher side, you can adapt a lot of what we're going to talk about today. But also, I did a session prior, and so I would point you to the Digital Labs YouTube channel, and we did a back to school session that specifically went into that. What's cool about today is there's been some updates. October, the Canva released a whole bunch of updates, and so I'll try to touch on a couple of those as we get going, as we go through some things. But really, the focus today is how can students jump in. So I got a tip sheet for you, so you'll walk away with some materials and be able to get some of those things covered. But let's get into student-created interactive learning experiences. So one of the things, just to real quick kind of make sure we're all on the same page, is Canva Code. Canva Code is brand new to Canva as of like 6 months ago, April, May. That's probably the first time you may have seen it pop up in your school instance if you're logged in with your school account. And it is an AI-powered experience where you use natural language, just like any other large language model AI that's out there that you may have used, heard about, experienced in some way. So you use natural language to describe something you want it to create, whether it's a very simple class timer or a celebration or a random name generator or something a little bit more complex. A short story creator, choose your own adventure story creator, a character analysis, an interactive lab experience, and then some of the others we're going to go into today. So there's a lot of we can do there. No coding required. And so that's why it's a really low barrier of entry for students. So I love that students can create these really cool interactive experiences. Some actually have used it to create a very uh, interactive web page or just a simple web page, right? They didn't have access to create HTML and open up WordPress or whatever, right? In their school environment to create a web page, but they could use Canva Code to help them start a web page. So you can do some different things with it. So you want the goal here, that last statement on my screen, how do we get our students to transform from passive to active? We want students creating. We want them to be the creators of their own learning. Always the goal with students. I was a seventh grade social studies teacher for a number of years in Phoenix, Arizona. I was a tech coach and then worked in the district office and now work on this side. And what I love about being able to deliver training and help folks like yourself learn about these types of things is I get to learn from you and I pass that on to other educators I work with, which is phenomenal. So I love hearing examples. So as we're going through some of these, if it sparks something in your mind, if you remember an example you've seen, something you're thinking, man, I'd like to try this with, or I did this already, drop those in the chat, share them with each other. And of course, I'm going to take those too and share them with others that I'm around. So hopefully that everybody can benefit from those types of things. So love to hear other examples and whatnot. But as we get into this, here's my kind of start plan is we're going to, how we very basic get access. That'll take 2 seconds. We're going to look a little bit at students writing a prompt because it is an AI. It is prompt writing at the basics. we need to talk to our students about iteration. How do we take our prompt we gave the AI, in this case, Canva Code, and say, hey, here's what you did, Canva Code, but I'd like to change this. That iteration is key. I'm going to show you an example of what one I already created and my iterations, just to give you kind of what that could look like. And then the ideas of sharing and showcasing, which I think make it really come to life. And I have an example from two of my own kids, one's in middle school, one's in high school, that I think is just helps it kind of hit home a little bit. I love the idea. Thanks for sharing in the chat. Use it to create a Shakespeare quiz for review, which is awesome. So student creation. So let's look at some examples to get your mind going first. Before we jump in and actually do it in Canva, before I even open up canva.com, let's just think about like, okay, what could this be? What are some possibilities, right? In the chat, we already had the Shakespeare quiz for review. I love it. So it's a review game, right? Like a review activity, maybe even. Maybe it's not a game even, but whatever, review. So it could be key vocabulary, concepts, right? Things like that. So review. I'm going to break it down by grade bands. So I'm going to start with our elementary, so our lower, and for our non-US folks, that would be from our like 5 to 10-year-olds ish, give or take, depending on where they're at. So an easy one, and again, this is kid created, an easy one for kids to create in those age ranges, depending on their typing ability, some of it, sometimes you can use dictation as well, is interactive flashcards. So could be spelling words. You could ask it to do a flip. Sometimes those interactive flashcards could also be with pictures. Canva Code uses emojis by default. So if you ask it to add a picture or to add images of animals, it'll use emojis first. So just be aware of that. That's just one of those little kind of interesting things. I can see it over time changing and adding some images to it. But for now, if you to go in and ask Canva Code to add images, like I'm thinking for the flashcards of students, especially younger kids, being able to recognize this word means this, right? And so having that kind of picture dictionary style flashcards to help them learn vocabulary. The default is Canva Code uses emojis, which is interesting. So you can get it to do some others too. Math manipulatives. This is actually a favorite of mine because sometimes our students either, I've noticed in some elementary classes, we just don't have enough manipulatives, or they actually can sometimes be a little bit too overwhelming or distracting for some kiddos. I still think the hands-on is super valuable, and there needs to be a mix. I don't want kids on computers all day, every day, even though I work in tech training. That may sound funny, but I actually don't want kids on computers all day, every day. It's value in picking up a block and holding 2 in one hand and 3 in the other. And what does that equal? There's huge value in that. But it is sometimes nice to have that virtual manipulative so that maybe students can refer back to it. So when they're not in class, maybe they're at home and have access to a device and they can log out their school account and go to their Canva and be able to use that virtual manipulative to practice, to study, to use in their homework assignment. I've seen that be really valuable as well. And then story builders. This one is so fun. You can ask Canva Code to create a choose your own adventure story. And so the example I use, it can be very basic. You don't have to start complicated. But I asked my son is in elementary school. I said, what would your story be about? And his always start about the same. But he chose that he wanted it to be about walking in the woods. We have woods behind our house. So walking in the woods. I said, okay, it's a choose your own adventure. What is the point you have to make a decision? He said, there's going to be a skeleton that you're going to investigate, or you're going to walk down a clear path. All right. So that was his like decision point. So we put that in, and Canva Code helped us write a story around this skeleton we found in the woods or avoiding it and going down the clear path. And then Canva Code actually created more to the story, added other details. And then you could add and keep it going. So have multiple choices as you go. So that example, what I'm trying to give you is that students could give it the baseline prompt, baseline story. Kids are walking in the woods or going on a hike in the woods, and they come across something, and it needs to be a choose your own adventure. That could be it. Canva Code will give you the ideas. Or in his case, he found a skeleton in the woods, right? And so he wanted to know what that skeleton was, or are we going to avoid the skeleton and go do other things? So that was his decision point. Middle school. So now we're looking at maybe 10, 11, 12 through maybe 13, 14 years old. Okay. What we could do here, this could be a quiz game. It could be multiple choice. This could be like an interactive scoring, almost Kahoot style, if you're familiar with that app. It could be interactive timelines. I actually really like this one. Historical events, getting students to drag and drop, put things in the correct order. Or what I like even better than that is students actually add to the interactive timeline and use it as a presentation. So students give Canva Code the facts and when and what order they happened in. So they're showing their learning. It creates it in a beautiful, now Canva's a design tool. It creates in this beautiful interactive timeline. And then the student actually tells Canva Code, what do they want the interactions to be? Example, I'm looking at the timeline. If I click a date, there's a pop-up window and it tells me what happened in that time. Simple, but it helps the students show their learning in something that presents very beautifully. It's something that they can be very proud of because it looks nice. They can share it with family, with peers, with whatever, school-wide. It can be really fun. I had a student do this for a science fair project. We just did our middle school science fair projects here locally in October is when they had that. And so they did an interactive timeline of the experiment stages, which I thought was another great example. So it doesn't have to be a historical timeline. It could be the events in the order that they happened. So it came across and just was a really nice way to show the stages of this one. They actually like swabbed 3 different sinks in the science lab as students like were washing hands, which sink would be the grow the most germs. It was kind of this interesting little experiment, but it showed beautifully in that timeline. And then data visualization is always really nice if it looks good, right? If it's easy to understand. So we can ask Canva Code, here's my data, help me show this. The other cool thing you can do with the data visualization is ask Canva Code to create it, how you want it to be set up, color-coded, all of that. And then ask Canva Code to create a button to import new data, or with the update in October, connect to a spreadsheet and automatically update every time new data is put into that spreadsheet. So that's a new addition in October, where now we can have data connections between our interactive Canva Code designs and Canva sheets. So that was an exciting update. We were missing that before, and I would have to fully upload a new CSV, which is nice that you could do. You can ask Canva Code to create that, but now we have sheets that can speak, and it can go the opposite way. So for the multiple choice scoring game, a request that was coming through is as students compete and complete these activities, the teacher doesn't have any way to see what they did. So now, though, you can create an export button, or you can ask it to automatically export when students finish to a Canvas sheet. So now there's that interoperability of Canvas sheets and Canva AI, Canva Code, which works really well together. All right, I need to quit talking about examples and get into it. High school digital portfolios are really great. Students can showcase their work. This works really well in a couple of ways. One is you can ask Canva Code to create it in a really beautiful format and give places for students to upload or add images, text, documents. So it just basically is giving them a really nice formatted portfolio, and then the students can add things later. So basically like a template, which is kind of cool. Interactive diagrams, similar to what I was talking about before with the graphing, and then the research presentations. So just making it nicer to look at and easier to work with. There's some other things you get into with science experiments. I'm going to show you one of those in a moment. So that's kind of cool. So some best practices to be thinking about. So as you introduce this to students, what's the best way to make this work? How is this going to work the best? Asking and modeling first, and then having students go in, asking them to follow this idea of when we're prompting, this goes across all AI, right? Be specific, tell it what you want to do, how do you want it to do it, what is it going to look like, right? Like all those things. You can start simple and add complexity. You can use things like create, build, make it so it looks like, right? Like give up those action words so it knows what to do, and always iterate and refine. Um, Start with a couple of projects, model for your students, and then help them understand that they can kind of go through the basics and more complex. And then the sheet I'm going to give you access to in a moment adds to this and also gives a suggestion of time. And this is key, especially I saw in my one child, firstborn, maybe that's why. She wanted it to be perfect, right? She wanted hers and she ran out of time. And so she wanted to work on it at home. Like she wanted to get it just like she had in her mind, pictured in her mind. She didn't have enough time to do that. So giving students like chunking the time for them, time limits as they're going through any project. With a lot of us, if we've been teaching for very long, that's probably something you would already think of. But I just want to mention that because Canva Code can start sucking time if students decide, oh, well, I want it pretty and I want the title look like this and I hope it does that, right? Like they can go really big on that and can be cool, but we also want to help them manage their time and learn, like when I'm making a project, how do I actually manage that time? And so maybe it's, we have 15 minutes in class today for you to write your project plan. The last 10 minutes of class today, I want you to write out what your prompt could be. When we come back to class tomorrow, you're going to try that prompt or whatever, right? Like think about how you're going to break down that time. And yeah, just in the chat saying, can relate that kids spend a ton of time in their Shakespeare games. Yeah, they can get really into it because they are fun and they're really cool. And then I think this is important, like students can say like, I don't know how to code, but look what I created. And that's what my daughter came home the first time. She was like, did you know I could do this? I was like, actually, I did. She was like, this is amazing. This is really cool. I could do this. I was like, I know, this is amazing. Like you could do more than this. We started talking about how she could actually use it in her own studying as well. And that's actually, she showed my middle school daughter, and my middle school daughter has actually used that to then help her study a couple of things and create her own study aids through Canva Code. So let's get into it. All right, I'm going to open up canva.com. That's my example. All right, where is it? Oh, I've gone too many places. That's why. Okay. So I'm going to just open up canva.com. I'm already logged in. So from the home page, let's just start at the beginning. From the home page, if I just want to immediately jump in and start using Canva Code and having students, so again, I'm going to model this first for students. I have one of two places I can go. What's nice is with the updates this summer and back to school, I can literally just start with this search bar at the top. I just jump right in. And I can click Canva Code right here. Or on the left-hand bar, I can always find Canva Code listed. So if I click that, it immediately jumps. You notice this is now highlighted. And it shows me some ideas of things I can do with Canva Code or Canva AI. Now, I'm going to actually click on the word Canva AI. Let's do that again. I want you to see the difference. I'm going to kind of click off and then come back so you can see the difference. So you notice right now, Canva AI, it doesn't help you break down what you can do. And I think that's important when we're first starting, and especially for students so they don't get lost, confused, mixed up. Because the default for Canva AI is it's going to create a design, a picture, a presentation, a video, right? That's the default. So we want to click Canva AI and actually click on it. So now we can say exactly what we want the Canva code to Canva AI to focus on, which in this case is Canva Code. So after I click the word code, you notice now my templates or ideas changed. That's that kind of visual reminder that it's changed. And then I can start doing that, and it even says like, I'll code it for you. And then it gives you a couple of quick little ideas here. You can see recent one. This is the one I just created earlier today to show you as an example. And I could just start here. So create a classroom timer from 30 seconds to 10 minutes, right? So I could do something as basic as that, and you can watch the Canva code. If you've never seen this go, that's why I did a simple one, just so you can see it go for the first time if you've never seen it before. And this is what your students are going to see. And the first time students see it, they're like, wait, what? What is it doing? This is amazing. And it is kind of cool to see. And you could tell them, like, that's HTML, that's text coding. Like, you could learn how to do that if you really wanted to. So it's kind of cool to see it go. And then once it's done, you can iterate. You can ask it to add color, to ask us up to have a celebration, to create a noise at the end of the timer, like all those kind of things, which is kind of cool. Now, I'm going to jump for the basis of just on the basis of time to what I did earlier. So this one, if you go back up, you notice I'm on my 5th iteration. If I go back to the original, I asked it to create and this is straight out of my 7th grade daughter's class. They are talking about cell structures, specifically the difference between animal and plant cell structures. And so I gave it some keywords to start with, make it an interactive drag and drop. So that's the directions that I gave it. And so it created one. Then I was like, oh, that's not enough. I needed to add more. So I asked that. So here it gave me some more. Then it added at the top of the screen, it actually said, this is what's in a plant. This cell, this is what's in an animal cell. So I just basically told them where to put things. I didn't want that. So I told them to get rid of that and instead create a hint button if they struggled. Then I gave them all the hints it want, right? So I'm refining as I go is my point. So the final one is you can see these are drag and drop. So now I can drag these. Oh, that was wrong. I can drag these. Oh, that was right. So it doesn't stick unless I drag it to the right place. Let's see if I can do this one. There we go. And so it sticks it when I get to the right place. And then if I'm really stuck, I can click hint. And here's what I had to iterate a couple times on with the hints is instead of it giving me all the hints at once, now it says just one hint at a time. And if I click hint again, it'll give me some, right? So that way it's not just giving the students everything at once. So I had to do that. And then of course I can click reset and then start again. Now, if a student created this for themselves or they wanted to share with others, this is great, but this happens to be a fairly long one. So it'd be really hard to actually drag these all the way to the top. So we want students to click use in a design. That's the easiest way to do it. I like using a website or presentation. Those are usually the ones I add them into. So I clicked use in a website and you see now it's side by side, which is a little bit easier to see and work with. So same directions, same options here, animal and plant, and I can scroll down a little bit. So now I can see it all at once. When I publish this, it actually makes it even easier to work with. So, and I haven't set this up, so I'm not going to do it right now, but you can publish it and it'll make it really easy. Let's do preview. That way you can see how it works. So now it's just clean, easy to see page, and they can work on it right here. And so now I can drag these and put them where they belong and, you know, keep going with what I need to do. Now you notice I just dragged until it's stuck. Students are going to do the same thing, right? But hopefully they start getting the idea of where things are supposed to be and can start thinking about how they're supposed to do things. And then there's the hint and they can do that. So that's kind of cool. I also really appreciate that I can publish this and share it. And when you publish it, you can actually share to peers and you can share to families, which is nice. So you have that access and be able to kind of show off what the students are doing and things they've been working on, which is really cool. So you have those kind of different options. So that's an example. I wanted to show you what the iteration could look like in Canva Code. It's fun because you see it like it actually will redo its code and then keep going and redo its code and keep going. So that's kind of fun to watch as well. So those are kind of some important things to know, how you can publish them and send them to students. So that's kind of cool. And then what a finished product could look like. So hopefully that gives you an idea of maybe what students could do and what they have access to. I also want to share with you all this resource. So I'm going to pause for a second right here. And if you're with me live, whoops, I didn't actually mean to do that. grab the text here and drop it in the chat. And you can hopefully just click right on that and be able to access this document. If you're reviewing this later as the recording, you can either type that short URL or scan the QR code, whichever is easier for you. And that will get you to this document. Now, it's a 3-page document that I am sharing that has a chunk of the things we talked about in this session, like the student example ideas, but then also some of those, it expands a little bit more on those tips, which I think is super helpful and wanted to make sure you all had access to and could see. So let's look at those really quickly. So this is that document and kind of the same things we said at the start of how to get started, why it can be great, and then some of those student examples, and then some example actual prompts, and then those tips for success are kind of expanded upon. And I think this is really helpful to help you kind of maybe give students some ideas and directions to help them kind of see how it could work and what would be easiest for them. You know your students, what level they're at, their understanding of prompting, their access to prompting, stuff like that. And then towards the bottom, I like the kind of being able to have students think through and share this with an authentic audience. And then, of course, getting, it doesn't say right here, but getting like peer-to-peer feedback, I think can be really valuable as well. And then the additional resources. So if you're not already involved in the Canva education community, highly recommend it. Their Facebook group is super active. It's an international group of educators all over the world, leaving comments and asking questions and sharing ideas. It's really great. There's on their website, I showed you a little bit, the template gallery. Then there's some cheat sheets. Now, these cheat sheets are by Canva. They're created by Canva. These aren't mine. So I'm not going to own that, or not going to try to own that. Those are theirs. And one of them that I wanted to highlight is their, nope, not that one, teacher guide. I think it's this one, for using Magic AI. And in here, nope, not that one either. That's a good one. Let's go to cheat sheets. And for student created code, I had it open and I closed it. I shouldn't have closed it. Now I'm not thinking quickly where it is. That's okay. If you go in here for Canva Code and just do a quick search, I'm just not going to take the time at the moment. You can find that, here it is, view cheat sheet. And the way I found that was this last one. Use code to empower students learning prompts. That's the one I clicked on. And I appreciate this one. It has some similar things to what we've talked about, but I also like how you could share this with students and they could use this to help themselves frame and kind of plan out their prompts and how they're going to use Canva Code. So I thought was a really helpful template that you could use for students and how they might use that, which is pretty great. So I wanted to share that with you all. And then, of course, love to see you in our future events. I have another webinar coming up in a couple of weeks that we're going to be doing in the new year. We're actually going to do a lot more webinars, Canva and other partners and tools that we work with. So love to see you at some of those as well. So you can feel free to find us at Digital Labs on a lot of the socials. And then, of course, at digitallabs.com/events, you can get access to all of our webinars. They're all free and be able to hang out with us and learn some more and learn together. So thank you all for joining me. I hope this was helpful and gave to you a little bit more ideas around how students can create their own learning with Canva Code. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.